Good morning to all. Thank you so much for having me. And I would like to thank especially Dr. Ignat Bogdan and Dr. Maria Miaksheva. It's a great pleasure being here with you. And I will share my presentation. I will talk about the special issue in our Brazilian society at the moment, especially at the university where I teach. I'm a sociologist and I teach in a medical school. And they say it is the second best university in Latin America, one of the best medical schools, and I will share my presentation. I'll talk about health, disease, and healthcare from the perspective of indigenous students enrolled in the undergraduate courses at the University of Campinas, where I teach. I'll focus especially in this perspective of challenges of vulnerable population. The presence of indigenous students in the university is a very recent event in the Brazilian academic culture. As you know, Brazil was colonized by Portuguese people in the century 16th. And there was indigenous people here since they arrived, but only the last 20 years, the indigenous people have a special entrance to the main universities in Brazil. Since the first edition of the indigenous entrance exam at the State University of Campinas, where I teach, this special entrance started in 2018, and since then, students start coming, and at the moment we have 348 students, indigenous students from 49 different ethnicities, and biggest part of them have their own languages, and of course, cultures and costumes. And since they arrived, many intercultural boundaries have been produced in which models of thinking, experiencing, meaning, and resignifying, among other aspects, health, illness, and care are confronted. That means the presence of them have been producing a lot of new intercultural boundaries. This project was funded by São Paulo Research Foundation, and it was developed with a co-labor methodology. That means we developed a set of strategies based on interculturality, interepistemicity, and decoloniality. We developed the project with indigenous students from 10 different ethnicities, and they took part since the beginning of the project. And the idea was to construct narratives between the researchers and the indigenous students, not about them, but with them. The diaspora of indigenous students are a very complex process that translate into experience of immersion in a new physical climate and new social, cultural, and political climate. We use this climate word, especially, of course, we could use a lot of other different words or concepts, but we are telling about climate exactly because indigenous students are coming, mostly of them, came from this area in red, in Amazon, in Brazilian Amazon, and they moved to this blue, one of these blue areas, where is São Paulo State and where is our university. It means more than 3,000 kilometers distant. And the climate in Amazon is very different from the climate. I'm talking about weather especially. But of course, inside the university, the social, political, economical climate is quite completely different to them also. So because that, we are using this word climate. This experience involves multiple dimensions that affect health of them. There is a special health system to indigenous people in Brazil. But since they moved to live at the university, this special health system is not working here to them. So they can receive treatments or healthcare of the national healthcare for every Brazilian people. And some necessities of them are not respected and are not possible to find here in our city. So it is a kind of racism with different degrees of intensity and different forms that permeates these experiences, which vary in each case. And we can found issues of racism related to social, cultural, and political climate in the place of origin. That means they brought with them different issues related to social relationship, their cultural issues and political relationship there also. And we can find some racism also related to intersection of social markers of difference, such gender, age, and phenotypic characteristics. Of course, they are different. They have their own characteristics. And people here in the south of Brazil can look to them, and sometimes they produce a kind of racism based on gender, age, and phenotypic characteristics. And also, we can find difference between academic environments. They came from different perspectives, different schools, and there are a lot of strange meetings when they are here developing their studies. To the same extent that racism is perceived and evaluated by indigenous students as one of the main pathogenic factors in the university diaspora space, at the same, they told us about the racism and different forms of racism, but at the same extent, they show us the construction of indigenous identity perceived as a general research of resistance and health production. That means when they come here, of course, they know about the difficulties and the resistance to be indigenous people in Brazilian society. But since they arrived here, they start developing this strong indigenous identity related to social movements. And the social issues relate to the possibility to development of their communities, and special policies relate to indigenous people in Brazil. So they suffer racism, but when they are here, they start being more related. They took part in strongly perspective in the social movements related to indigenous communities in Brazil. Going to the conclusion, we conclude that the reinstitution of the conditions and possibilities for the production of healthy subjectivities and collectivities at the university depends on the pluri-ethnic and pluri-epistemic refounding of the academic space, which must be carried out with and not for indigenous students. They point a lot of issues that produce health problems to them or health suffering. Sometimes food. The food is completely different because they live near to big rivers in Amazon. They eat a lot of fishes. And here in this area, we do not have big rivers, and it's not part of our cultural nutrition, having fish so much as they have. They suffer a lot in the winter times here because it's much colder than there. They point the necessity to forest to balance their own healthy, and we have no forest near here. So all these they pointed is a necessity to create new perspectives. And when they brought this to us inside the university, of course, they put us on challenge to recreate our own space in the university. And it is very important. We are challenged to create not to them, but with them, because they are bringing new necessities to us. And of course, the Brazilian indigenous people has been part of the established outsider conflicts in Brazilian society, and consequently, the remarkable controversy between performances of coloniality and performances of decolonization, right? They have been fighting for their own lands. They have secret lands. They need the forest to live. And biggest part of Brazilian society are fighting against them because they want the land to produce agriculture or cows and things like that. So it has been 500 years of resistance and controversy about established outsider populations in Brazilian society. And to conclude, it is necessary more than interdisciplinarity to make healthcare system anti-fragile. That means we have in Brazil the unique system or universal system, health system for all Brazilian people. That means more than 200 million people have free access to health care. Of course, there are a lot of challenges, but this system has been working the last 35 years. And also, we have a special subsystem for indigenous people. But work with this idea of interdisciplinarity is not sufficient when we have been listening the indigenous people, because interdisciplinarity, if you think about this concept, it is the meeting of disciplinarities, and it can encompass multi-dimensional care. That means you have disciplinarity about biological issues, about social issues, about psychological issues, about spiritual issues, but you can try to put these together. But what the indigenous students have telling us is their necessities are not only in these disciplines. What they need is more than interdisciplinarity. They need epistemic justice to make healthcare system anti-fragile to them or to all. That means they have not professionals inside the health system or in our city or in our university. There is no professionals formed and working with their indigenous practices, indigenous symbols about health, disease, and healthcare. So when they have no epistemic or knowledge or skills related to this meanings in their cultures, they feel, okay, we have a kind of health assistance, but this health assistance is not enough because we need our perspectives in religious healthcare, psychological healthcare, and sometimes biological healthcare that is different from biomedical or the medicine or conventional medicine they can receive here at the university in other areas in Brazil. So to finalize, to make healthcare anti-fragile for all people in Brazil, in around the world, of course, for vulnerable people, we need more than different disciplines. We need also their own perspectives and their own professionals, their own beliefs. So that's it. Thank you so much for the possibility, and it's been a big pleasure being here. Thank you.